Hey out there, in this video I want to show you what I saw in my one-day trip to Anaheim and the Pacific Design and Manufacturing Expo of 2019. There's no way I can show you everything, just some of what stood out for me, so you can know what to expect if you're thinking about going in the future. There was a whole medical section and a whole section of food processing and packaging equipment that would have been interesting if I had more time, but not really what I came for. There were a ton of robots of all different shapes and sizes doing really weird demos to show how fast and accurate they were. This company makes these retracting hose and cable mechanisms to take up slack. Pretty simple, but cleaner than having a bunch of cables and springs hanging around everywhere. These two robots were picking up a part, handing it back and forth, deburring it, grinding it, swapping tools. Very repeatable and synchronized for sure. Panasonic has this torque driver setup that lets someone set the torque remotely, track the number of times you reach that torque, and even assign a specific number of bolts at specific torques. And then it cues you to switch to the other driver at the right time. Pretty cool. There were a ton of silicone and urethane molders. Molding wheels that end up with minimal runout is actually quite a challenge. I've come up against this before. I know for people that are used to working with stepper motors that these demos are boring, but that level of accuracy and synchronization still blows my mind. Saw lots and lots of spring manufacturers. I've seen diagrams of what's on the inside of a plastic injection molding machine and understood it pretty well, but it was cool seeing it in person. The plastic pellets are fed in at one end of the screw, and as they get pushed forward, they get compressed and melt. Then at the end there's some mixing vanes, right before the plastic gets injected. Plenty of companies even brought and set up whole injection molding machines and cranked out sample parts right there on the floor. There were cups, frisbees, even dog bowls getting made. There were a handful of shops with Swiss screw machine parts they were showing off. Super tiny parts, very cool process, you should check it out if you can. This is an example of a part made in a progressive die, which gets used when the final shape is too difficult to stamp in one step. So they get to that final shape through a series of smaller stampings. This company has a water jet with a head that can swivel to make angled cuts. You don't design parts with angled cuts like that very often, but it would let you compensate for the angled kerf you get sometimes with water jet cut parts, especially thick ones. These guys make all kinds of custom vibration dampening feet and pads. I guess had a pretty big booth with lots of sample parts, bushings, linear guides, and a robot showing off their cable management system. I especially like the curved track at the bottom that rolls over itself when the bottom of the robot swivels. This is a cool idea if you need a retractable cable, but don't want an electric slip ring or sliding contacts. The E-chain on the left side of the spool folds over itself and takes up the slack as you return the cable. You might have to watch this one a few times before it makes sense. Smalley was there with the biggest wave spring I've ever seen. There was also a fair amount of process automation, like this 2-station heat staking tool. SDP had a good spread of their tiny parts and gears. Lots of custom die cutting and molded silicone parts. This is the first time I've run across this 3D printing company called 3DG. Their printer is similar to the more common Formlabs SLA printers, except for a few major things. I have a Formlabs 2, so I'll compare it to that. Instead of curing the resin with a laser that darts around the printing platform, this one uses a DLP projector to just project the image one layer at a time. In between layers, it tilts the tray down to get new resin ready to be cured. There's no auto feed of the resin, so if you have a large print, you might have to add some more as it prints. They say it's quite a bit faster too, 2.6 inches an hour. The build volume is larger, 5 by 7 by 11.8 instead of 5 by 7 by 5 by 7 by 6.9 on the Formlabs, so that's pretty good. And probably most importantly, it costs only $1,900 instead of almost $3,500 for the Formlabs. They have a smaller selections of resin so far, but they have clear, flexible, and some colors. So I thought it was pretty interesting. If anybody has experience with these guys, I'd love to hear about it. So along with about 1,000 other booths and miles of walking, that was my day. I hope this helps you decide if you want to make the trip in the future. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.